Thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Bob Bradley from the Pampered Cruiser, and today we're chatting about how to pick which river cruise company might be best for you, and we'll specifically be featuring Uniworld and the 5 things that differentiate them in the world of river cruising. We put this presentation together because we found that we were getting a lot of calls from people whose heads were getting ready to explode trying to figure out which river cruise line might be the best one for them. One of the advantages of dealing with a knowledgeable and reputable agent is that we deal with all the river cruise lines, and we've personally sailed on most of them, so we can help you figure out which one is best suited for you. All right, so here's our specific agenda for today. First, I'll start out with just a little bit about us, so we're not completely anonymous to you. Then we'll talk about how overwhelming all these river cruise choices really are, particularly when it comes to traveling in Europe. We'll give a quick overview to Uniworld. We'll talk about specifically the 5 things that set Uniworld apart in the world of river cruising. And then we'll talk about some special things available from Uniworld right now. Finally, if you stay all the way to the end, we'll tell you how you can get an extra $200 per person onboard credit on board any Uniworld cruise, and an additional $250 per person discount on any Uniworld cruise at all if it's booked by April 15th. We just hours ago got off a Uniworld cruise and were able to extend the book on board bonus to you. But it has to be booked by April 15th. All right, some of you may know us a little bit, but here's a little bit of information on us. My wife Sue and I run the Pampered Cruiser together, and we're a busy independent affiliate of Smart Flyer based in New York City. Over the past several years, we've helped hundreds of clients plan unforgettable cruise and package land vacations. Here's us at this year's Virtuoso Travel Week visiting with Ellen Bettridge, the president of Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. If you want to check out our Facebook page, we've got quite a few reviews on there, and if you want to see them, you can go to the Reviews tab. Our agency is part of Virtuoso, the invitation-only luxury travel consortia, and for the past 3 years, Sue and I have been named as Virtuoso Cruise Icons, indicating that our cruise sales place us in the top 1% of all travel advisors in North America. But back now to the issue of the day. There are 2 problems people run into when they're trying to figure out what to do on a river cruise. So the first problem is maybe folks are ocean cruisers who need to unlearn some of what they know because they went on one of those big mega ships out of Florida 25 years ago and hated it. Or maybe they're regular ocean cruisers. What they don't fully understand until they actually do a river cruise is that ocean cruising and all the rules and guidelines that apply to booking one of those don't really apply to river cruising. The ocean and river experience actually have very little in common. In fact, river cruising is much more comparable with those luxury boutique hotel motor coach tours of Europe that we used to all do than it is really with an ocean cruise. The second issue we see is pure information overload. So the internet's a powerful tool, but the problem isn't lack of information, it's way too much information and how to make sense of it all. And this is compounded by the fact that river cruise lines have a much more subtle differentiation from the way that the ocean cruise lines differentiate. I always joke that if somebody asked me to compare Carnival cruise lines to, say, Holland America, that it's really an easy discussion, because depending on what you're looking for, you're going to be really happy on one and really unhappy on the other one. So the pain here is very real. So how do you choose? The river lines all sail the same rivers, they all seem to have mostly the same port stops, the ships all appear to be the same size, and the inclusions and service offerings all look quite similar. So how do you pick? Well, we deal with them all, so we're happy to help you discover which one might be best for you. But in this video, we're going to focus mostly on Uniworld and how they're different than the other river cruise lines. Having said that, we deal with all the river cruise lines, and no one product is perfect for everyone. But by exploring how Uniworld differentiates itself from the other river cruise lines, it can help you ask the right questions to determine which line might be right for you. Okay, here we go. Here's a bit of background information on Uniworld, and then we'll get into the 5 things that I think sets them apart from the other river cruise lines. Uniworld is well known as the boutique river cruise company because each of their ships is custom built and decorated to reflect the area that it sails through. We were on the Uniworld Joie de Vivre from Paris to Normandy a while ago, and there was no doubt when we were in France whether we were on or off the ship. Each ship is meticulously decorated with the Tolman family's personal art collection on board. Here's an original Picasso on board the Joie de Vivre. Besides their unique ships, Uniworld is the most inclusive river cruise line with virtually everything in. The transfers, the gratuities, all drinks at all times, farm-to-table cuisine, wellness and fitness classes, bicycles on board that you can borrow to go for a ride on shore if you want, and a wide variety of shore excursions in every single port. Uniworld services the standard European rivers that all the other river cruise lines do, as well as a few unique offerings. The Po River in Italy from Venice up to Milan, the Ganges River in India, the Nile River in Egypt, and the source rivers in Peru where the Amazon begins with land add-ons to Machu Picchu. So they really do some interesting different things. Uniworld quite regularly attracts clients that maybe have already experienced a river cruise in a particular area, and then they want to go back and visit it again in more depth. Okay, so with that as a backdrop, here are the 5 things that differentiate Uniworld in river cruise world. Number 1, the inclusions. There's no nickel and diming on board Uniworld. So all your onboard gratuities are covered, all beverages at all times. At some of the river cruise lines, they include beer and wine just with meals, just by way of example. All your transfers, this is whether you book your air through Uniworld or whether you do your own thing, your transfers are included. There are bicycles on board for you to borrow at any time you feel like going out for a boot. There's wellness and fitness classes and fitness facilities on board the boats. Lots of river boats actually don't have a gym because the boats are really quite small. So one of the advantages of Uniworld, not only are there fewer people on board, but because there's fewer people, it gives them the opportunity to have some extra things you wouldn't normally get on a river boat. So just to put it in perspective a little bit, a lot of these boats, again, as mentioned, are kind of the same size on the various European rivers, where some ships of the same size as the Uniworld boats would hold up to 180 passengers. Uniworld, on average, has 120 passengers on the boat, so there's a lot more space for these things. So a good question to ask if you're looking across all the river cruise lines is exactly what is included, so you can make sure that you're getting an apples-to-apples comparison. Number 2, the boutique hotel. So most obviously the ships themselves in Uniworld are the star of the show, but it is more than just ornate decorations and the private art collections that I was talking about earlier. Farm-to-table cuisine that is sourced locally in the area through which you're sailing, so even when you're on the ship, you're eating the local food, which is pretty cool. There's an open bar, which I mentioned earlier, so that's all beverages at all times. And you know, this is more than just about free booze. This is about the culture on the ship. So on most ships, when you go to order another drink, you produce your key card and they bill it to your room, or you know, even if it's at the time that they're included, then they're keeping track of what you're consuming. On Uniworld, they just come along and top up your glass of wine if it's half empty. So it feels a little bit more like you're a guest in somebody's home than a patron at a restaurant somewhere. Again, as mentioned, the boutique ships are designed for the area through which they sail. There's a reason they call themselves the Boutique River Cruise Collection. And if you go back to the idea of river cruises replacing high-end bus tours, the advantage that Uniworld offers is checking into a luxury boutique hotel and then having that hotel move with you through Europe, so you're really only having to unpack once. And again, each ship is purpose-built for the region in which it sails, so the ship becomes a continuation of the regions through which you are sailing. Number 3, more choices. All the river cruise lines offer shore excursions in every port, but Uniworld gives you 2, 3, 4, or more options in each place, and you're escorted in smaller groups. So you won't be herded like cattle, and there's more opportunities to pursue your own interests. It's more like personal travel, but with all the logistics taken care of. They also offer these curated experiences. On the Joie de Vivre, for example, we did a French cooking demonstration where we got to participate in the preparation of the meal. In Venice, Uniworld guests have the opportunity to visit the crypts at St. Mark's Square after hours. These aren't open to the public, so it's kind of an exclusive experience. And here's a few other examples, and these are all included in the Uniworld fare, by the way. In Amsterdam, you can do Morning with the Masters. This is early admission to the Hermitage Museum, where you can go to learn all about the Dutch master artists. Let's go golfing at Étré in France. That's on the Paris to Normandy cruise if you want to do a golf outing. Burano Island, Italy. This is an island right in the Venetian lagoon that you get to visit when doing the overnight stay on the ship in Venice. There's visits to the landing beaches and cemeteries at Normandy Beach when you do the Seine River cruise from Paris out to Normandy. And if you end up in Bordeaux, I haven't done this one, but this looks really interesting to me. You can go to Le Site du Vin, which is it's in Bordeaux, and it's a cultural venue that's all about wine because you are, in fact, in Bordeaux after all. Number 4, destination immersion. So all those experiences I just mentioned lend themselves well to this point about the destination immersion stuff. But if we go back to my earlier comments about the differences between ocean and river cruising, a key point is that on many ocean vessels, the ship itself is the destination. This is particularly, the river or on the ocean boats that are in that floating amusement park sort of category, where it doesn't really matter where you're going because it's about being on the ship. On Uniworld ships, the focus is what you do on shore, and that's amplified by how they've built and how they operate their ships. So there's no doubt that all the choices we were just talking about gives you a more in-depth experience, and Uniworld's part of a larger organization called TTC, so you can extend your trip pre or post through Luxury Gold or Insight Vacation, Red Carnation Hotels. If you've heard of any of these brands, they're all sister brands to Uniworld. So our clients have found that Uniworld is great for those that want to return to a place that perhaps they've already been and explore it in more depth, or by doing things they didn't do last time. Conversely, for the first-time visitor who really likes to immerse him or herself in a place with maximum depth, Uniworld is perfect. Number 5, River Cruise Plus. I wasn't really quite sure what to call this last point, so this is the title I picked. This really just speaks to the fact that Uniworld enables you to do things you just can't do on many of the other river cruise lines. So for example, we talked about the river cruise sailings on the Po River in Italy round trip from Venice. That's not offered by anyone else, and you can add on an exclusive rail experience to that Italy cruise. I think this part's really cool. So they've got a few different options. So one is you can head up to Switzerland. So you do your 7 nights on board La Venezia, round trip again from Venice, and then you transfer over to Trieste to board the Golden Eagle luxury train. And this isn't like throwing you on the Amtrak or on part of the Eurail system. This has been curated just for Uniworld guests, and so the Golden Eagle luxury train is quite a bit different again than the Amtrak. And then you would visit Slovenia, Austria, and Switzerland over the course of 3 nights. And then you finish up in Zurich, and you have a hotel night in Zurich before you fly home. If you're looking for a little bit more of an adventure, you can again do that 1-week river cruise on the Po River in Italy, and then you can hop on board the train and go to Turkey. So you do 6 nights on the train. You visit Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, Macedonia, Greece, and Bulgaria, and then you finish up with 2 nights in Istanbul. And on all these things, again, you get your own private cabin on board the train, done to Uniworld standards. It's the cabins are just right around 100 square feet, which is actually pretty big for a train. So it's kind of a really cool experience, and what a great way to see those southeastern European countries. Most of them are part of the former Yugoslavia. Not necessarily the easiest countries to travel, and so this makes it very easy to do so. You get to see those countries all from the comfort of a luxury train. You can also add the train onto some of the Danube river cruises. So in this case, you would do a 7-night river cruise between southern Germany, Bavaria, and Budapest, and then transfer to the train for 4 nights traveling through Hungary and Romania, and then you finish up with a hotel night in Romania in this one, and you get to do a private visit and dinner at the Bran Castle. That's the one that inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is pretty cool. So if railways aren't your jam, I also mentioned that Uniworld does some things that many of the other river cruise lines just don't do. So India, for example, they sail on the Ganges River in India, which they're the only ones that do so. So that'd be a great way to see India. In Peru, so you can add Machu Picchu onto a river cruise at the headwaters of the Amazon River in Peru. They do the Mekong, which is Cambodia and Vietnam, and also Egypt up and down the Nile River. So this is just just a great way to visit some of these countries that are a little bit more difficult to travel than typically we find in Europe. All right, I promised to give you an idea of some of the special offers that Uniworld has going on right now, so let's get to that. A number of the Uniworld itineraries for 2022 are being offered at $1,000 per person off, and we're able to layer that up with the additional $250 that I mentioned earlier that you can get off as well. So here's a nice, easy sort of itinerary, if you like. It's a round trip out of Amsterdam. There's departures in July, August, or September at the prices I'm mentioning here. Again, there are other prices at other times of the year as well. I just try using these as examples. So in July, August, or September, you can leave round trip from Amsterdam, 7-night river cruise throughout all the various parts of the Netherlands. And classic room there, normally at $31.99 per person. You subtract the $1,000 off that Uniworld's offering, an additional $250 that we're able to get for you, and you can be on that ship for $19.49 per person. Not too bad. So if you'd rather sail on a French balcony, price is a little bit higher, but still really good value. It's $44.99, again, minus the $1,000 savings, another $250 off, leaves you with a final price of $32.49. So I mentioned earlier that Uniworld is the only river cruise company operating in Italy on the Po River. So let's take a look at that one. So I should say that Sue and I just finished this cruise, and I got to tell you, it was spectacular. What I like most about it is that it's fully immersive. You really get to dive in because the ship really doesn't move all that far in the week that you're on board. So here's the breakdown if you want to do this one. This is, again, it's a 7-night cruise on the Po River round trip out of Venice. There's also an optional extension into Milan for a couple of days if that suits you. And this, on selected dates, there's $1,000 off on this one. And you, again, you can layer that up with the $250 discount we're able to get you between now and April 15th. So these are for departures in July and August of this year of 2022. Deluxe room, regular $41.99. You knock $1,000 off that, further $250, and that gets your net price down to $29.49 per person. Again, if you'd prefer the French balcony, it's a little higher. It's $51.99, less the appropriate discounts, brings you to $39.49. And as I said, when you compare that to what it would cost you to stay anywhere else in Venice, with obviously all your meals are in when you're on board the ship and all these activities, that value is pretty hard to beat. The cruise starts and finishes in Venice. You get to spend 3 nights right in the lagoon itself, which is pretty cool because if you get a hotel in the Venetian lagoon, it'll cost you a fortune. So even if the ship didn't move, that would be a thrill all in and of itself, just hanging out in Venice for a few days. In that time, you get to visit all the required Venice attractions, and your included excursions. You get things like a visit Doge's Palace, an after-hour visit to St. Mark's Basilica. Then you head up to Padua, that's up the Po River a little bit, and carry on to either Bologna or Ferrara, depending on what you want to do. Those are some of the choices we talked about earlier that Uniworld offers. You get to go to Burano, Porto Vera, and the islands in the northern part of the Venetian lagoon that are often missed by visitors to Venice. These are all covered on this cruise. So if you really want to immerse yourself in Venice and northern Italy, this is just a great way to do it. And again, when you consider all the inclusions on Uniworld that I mentioned earlier, the value here is pretty hard to beat. Finally, here's one more example from Europe. This is Paris to Normandy, round trip from Paris for 7 nights on board the Joie de Vivre. Again, there's other dates available. I was just looking for the best price for illustrative purposes. As mentioned before, we did this cruise right before the pandemic, and it's the perfect balance in my mind between urban sort of stuff that you can do in Paris and being able to visit the Normandy landing beaches and the American cemetery out there. For the record, those wishing to visit the British or Canadian landing beaches instead of the American ones, that is also offered as an option. Again, coming back to Uniworld putting many options in front of you. Okay, so here's how this one prices out. Again, this is a 7-night cruise, also offered $1,000 off, as well as the other $250 we can get you. There's departures late in July, the 25th or the 31st of July of 2022. Classic room, regular price is $45.99. You take off $1,000, the other $250 we can get you. Your net price is $33.49 per person. If you'd prefer to be in a French balcony, again, a little bit higher, $57.99. Minus the appropriate discounts brings you down to $45.49. On this same river cruise, you also get to visit Monet's Garden at Giverny, as well as Rouen, La Roche-Guyon, Caudebec-en-Caux for Honfleur, and Etretat and Mantes-Jolet for Versailles. See, my high school French is actually coming in handy for the first time. And of course, you get to visit Paris. Plus, on the Joie de Vivre, you can visit the French bistro without even leaving the ship, or have dinner at the Cave du Vin, which is the wine cellar right on board. Finally, here's one more example, and I really want to do this trip. So this is South America. It's Peru and Machu Picchu. So here's how this one's going to look for you. This is a 2-week trip, as opposed to the other ones we've been talking about are only 1 week. So there's 1 week on the Uniworld ship itself, and then there's another week of shore activities that are all part of the package that I'm describing here. So this one is being offered at $5,000 off in October, November, and December departures for this year. So again, the regular price on this would be $17,499 per person. Keep in mind, again, it's a 2-week trip, less the $5,000 discount. Another $250 that we can get you brings your net pricing down to $12,249. I should mention there are internal flights involved in this particular, just because you're covering an awful lot of distance. You're in the Amazon headwaters, and you're also going to Machu Picchu. So there's quite a bit of moving around in South America as well. You get 2 days in the Lima hotel to acclimatize. Then they fly you out to Iquitos to board the Aria Amazon. This ship is really cool. It's all suites, and the rooms all have floor-to-ceiling windows, so you get to actually, just sitting in your room, you get a spectacular view of the Amazon as it passes by. And there's only, this is really interesting, there is only 16 suites on board this boat. So there's only 32 guests on any sailing. So you get lots of attention. You're on the boat itself for 7 nights. So you get your 2 nights in Lima, then you're on the boat for 7 nights. You get to visit remote Amazon villages. You can go kayaking, do jungle walks, visit the local markets, do a bit of fishing, craft markets. You get to visit a manatee rescue center when you're on the ship. When you disembark the ship after your 7th night, then they fly you over to Cusco. And again, these internal flights are all included in the fare. They fly you to Cusco, where you'll spend the next 5 days in that sort of area, visiting the Sacred Valley and making your way by train up to Machu Picchu. So you get to tick 2 things off on your bucket list here. You get Machu Picchu and the headwaters of the Amazon. Finally, on your 15th day, they pop you back on a plane, again included in the fare, back to Lima. So you can either extend your stay in Peru or fly home. All right, finally, wrapping up. Who is a good fit for Uniworld? And I think I'll leave this Amazon B-roll running because the images are so stunning. People that are a real good fit for Uniworld are those that don't want the nickel and diming. They like the included room service, they like the open bar, they like the included bike and fitness stuff, and all the other things we've been talking about earlier. If you want to immerse yourself in the experience and see things that you haven't seen before, so maybe you're visiting a place for the very first time and you really want to see it in depth, or if you're returning, you want to see things and experience things that maybe you didn't get to see last time. You want to have choice, and you don't want to be herded like cattle from one attraction to the next. You want someone to handle the logistics, but you want some choice in what you do at all these various locations. And finally, you're somebody that likes the higher passenger to guest ratio, meaning that there's more people working there as a proportional basis to the number of people on the ship. And also that also gives you the extra space ratio as well. So we're not packing people in like sardines on Uniworld. So people that want a little bit higher level of service and a little bit more attention, Uniworld's a good choice for you. So finally, and perhaps the moment you've all been waiting for, here's how you can get an extra $200 per person onboard credit and an additional $250 per person discount on any Uniworld cruise. We book a ton of Uniworld cruises, and as a result, through an exclusive arrangement between Uniworld and our agency, we get an additional $200 per person onboard credit on virtually any river cruise with Uniworld. And you can use that towards optional shore excursions, spa treatments, or purchases at the small onboard shop if you wish. We're not going to make you quote a discount code or anything like that. Just mention that you saw the video and we'll add that extra $200 for you. What I really like about this is that because Uniworld is so inclusive, you can use that onboard credit to do something you maybe just would not ever do, right? So one of the optional shore excursions, something that you just wouldn't normally do because you got to spend this money one way or the other. I will also remind you that if you want the extra $200 per person onboard credit, as well as the $250 per person discount on any Uniworld cruise, that it does have to be booked by the 15th of April. So just coming up in the next few days here. So here's how you can get in touch with us. You can reach us, and there we are. There's a picture of us. You can email us at Sue at the Pampered Cruiser or Bob at the Pampered Cruiser if you want. Either one, it'll get through. Our phone number, 1-800-876-0168. And yeah, we're looking forward to helping with this. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we look forward to chatting with you soon.